Like that is not okay. And so I think, all sorts of reform like that is really important. And then I also think, I
And
mean,
tell me, just on that point, tell me about the situation with your judge and the stock.
oh my gosh. So
It's very relevant to this conversation.
yeah, so when Amazon accused my husband in the Eastern District of Virginia, which they chose, right? They said my husband criminally violated his employment terms. My husband lived and worked in Seattle, and his employment terms were governed by Washington state law. But they just went to Virginia, which is a very government, CIA, the NSA, all of the agencies are based
Mhm.
there. And so juries tend to be people who worked for national security, and it's a pro government district. Um, anyway, the judge that first was assigned to Amazon's civil case and who was overseeing like civil forfeiture, et cetera, his name was Liam O'Grady. And he was ruling in Amazon's favor on everything. Like there wasn't even, like to the extent, you know, Amazon asked for a preliminary injunction, which means like we're going to get the judge to force the other side to give us money before we prove something happened. And they got a preliminary injunction for $21 million against their main target in the investigation of my husband, which is a real estate developer. There was no evidentiary hearing. Like Brian, the main target had no chance to like rebut this. And Liam O'Grady told him to put up a $21 million bond. The man did not have a $21 million bond. And so it was devastating. But anyway, I was reading a Wall Street Journal article the following year in 2021 about judicial conflicts of interest because the Judicial Code of Conduct says that judges should not hear cases in which they have a financial interest. So if you own stock in Amazon, you should not hear a case where Amazon is a party. And that makes good sense to me. But it's not a hard and fast rule. Judges have so much leeway, as I'm sure you know if you've been watching the debates with the Supreme Court and Clarence Thomas flying on Harlan Crow's plane, et cetera. Anyway, so I read this article in the Wall Street Journal about Liam O'Grady, about just judicial conflicts of interest, and it named a number of judges where they had found these wild conflicts, and it really had upended the judiciary for a while. My husband's judge wasn't named in there, but I clicked through the source material, which are financial disclosures anybody can find online from the judges. The most recent financial disclosure they had was 2018 for Judge O'Grady, and is now, my husband's case started in 2020. So I decided to reach out to one of the reporters on Twitter, which anyone can do. And I think this is like really important for Americans to understand. You can't only talk to a reporter if you have a press team that none of us can afford. Like the coolest thing about the internet is that you have access to reporters everywhere. They're on X, they're on Blue Sky, you can find them. You can find their emails generally on web pages and they might not respond, but they might. So I reached out to this journalist on Twitter and he got back to me. And he ended up calling Judge O'Grady's chambers and asking if he owned Amazon stock still. And Judge O'Grady said he did. He then told us he was not going to recuse because he didn't think he needed to. Then the Wall Street Journal put it on the front page of their print paper, and then Judge O'Grady recused himself. And I think it's a really interesting point. Like, I often wonder, Judge O'Grady said he wouldn't recuse when the public eye wasn't on him. And then when the public eye was on him in a paper of record that the business community reads, he recused. That's the power of journalism. That's the power of the fourth estate. That is why losing it is so wildly dangerous. Or it's why conflicts of interest within journalism are so wildly dangerous. You
Mhm.
mentioned early on that very few reporters will tell our story. Not a single one has done a deep investigation into our family story, even though quite literally it's unprecedented in American history. And we have these wild emails showing complete favoritism to a billionaire, right? But like on the other hand, Amazon is the number one buyer of media ads in the world, including for all of the newspapers and all of the TV channels. And like, they don't want to piss Jeff off. I mean, like I once had at a certain point during this, I had a book agent and an amazing proposal. I have a social media following of nearly 500,000 people, which is, Ariella is like more than enough to get a book proposal like down the pipe.
100%.
And my book agent sent it to some people, and then they essentially got back to him and said, "You're committing career suicide by working with this woman because 90% of books are sold on Amazon and you're going to get blackballed." That's the power of Jeff Bezos and Amazon. And it's just stunning. And it's really, really dangerous. But we're
And
lucky.
now it's, he's not even being discreet about it. I just read that I think Amazon Studios paid $40 million for a Melania Trump documentary, 70% of which is going directly to her.
Yeah.
And it's just he's going to kiss the ring and put
Yeah.
his money where he needs to accumulate and hoard his power.
And
And
has
like,
any journalist, since that news came out, which that deal was like negotiated right at dinner at Mar-a-Lago, has any journalist since that deal was struck dug in with Amazon Prime and figured out what they've paid for other documentaries of noteworthy people in America and how much of that payment went to this
yeah,
documentary subject? Because like that answers your question. It's not complicated, but nobody will do it.
yeah,
And I think like the result of that is that Jeff Bezos and his lawyers believe that they can try to imprison people when they want to. And that's terrifying.
it really is. Do you think, so obviously you have been on to the Broligarchs longer than most people. Do you, in your mind, are they equally dangerous? Is Bezos the most dangerous? Like, how my only hope during this time where I'm really worried about all this power is that there are a couple of them, that they'll be competing and feuding for power amongst themselves. I mean, they shouldn't exist to begin with, but I'm just wondering, like, what is the end game for them? Is one trying to be the puppeteer king for Trump, or are they all just trying to serve as like a court or something, the king's
I mean,
court?
I can't spend a ton of time thinking about them. I think it's
Yeah,
like horrifyingly pathetic that they all just want more money and more power.
yeah,
But I do think, like, I think they probably all have different incentives. Like, I kind of believe the Jeff Bezos incentive is winning the space wars, right,
yeah,
in Blue Origin. And so, whatever he can do to get more space contracts, and he's in direct competition with Musk for them, right? And so, like, Musk bet on the right horse here, Bezos didn't. So I think that I cannot figure out what Elon Musk's motivations are in life. I don't, like an enigma to me. I don't know. Um, but they all do get tens of billions of dollars of government contracts, and that's really important for them. Um, for Amazon to continue to exist, they need to continue to get tens of billions of dollars of government contracts. And Amazon Web Services, their data centers house the national security secrets of the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, the DoD. Like that is also so bizarre, right? Like I know Jeff Bezos wouldn't do this, but on any given Sunday, Jeff Bezos could just be like, I'm destroying America. Like we have given that power to a private citizen, which is bananas. And so I don't know. I think Jeff Bezos is particularly dangerous because he is ruthless in a different way than we have seen the other oligarchs be ruthless. Jeff Bezos, it isn't just my husband he's accused of crimes. He's referred dozens and dozens and dozens of Americans to the DOJ for federal prosecution. Elon Musk has not done that. Mark Zuckerberg has not done that, right? And these are things like, Amazon, like when someone like runs a return scam where they, buy a bunch of things and then say, oh, I'm returning them, but fill the packages with lesser price goods, which by the way, is a result of Amazon's return policy. Like they're the ones that it's, their policy is causing the problem. So it's kind of like internet shoplifting. One would assume that could be handled, like if this is happening in Kentucky, it would be handled in Kentucky. No, Amazon goes to the Department of Justice and they make it a federal wire fraud crime. And so, and it's like, not everyone can do that, right? So I think Jeff is particularly dangerous. I also think in terms of, if we use the word lawfare, Amazon and Bezos engage in lawfare constantly. They didn't get the $10 billion Jedi contract, sue the government. Musk gets the SpaceX contract, sue SpaceX. I mean, and I think part of it is, I think you can deduct legal fees
I'm sure.
from taxes. And so they're like, fuck it, we'll just keep spending money on legal fees. But they're particularly ruthless, and they have found some law firms that will just go to the mat for them, like including Gibson Dunn. But that said, like obviously Facebook and Meta are just, terrifyingly dangerous in our
Yeah.
society for different reasons. Surveillance, and according to courts, they're lying their faces off too. Sheryl Sandberg, who we revere so much for a lot of her work, she allegedly destroyed documents relevant to
I saw
Cambridge
that.
Analytica. That's horrifying.
Yeah. I'm wondering if, so you talk about, Bezos and, oh my God, I lost my train of thought.
I'll take a sip.
Okay. Oh my God, I had a question. Oh, is there, okay, you talk about the law firms that will do his bidding. Is there a world in which you and your husband have a case against the law firms, or there's a way to go to the bar association? And probably no, but but I also wonder, if because the law firms are a problem too, because they'll just take the money and they're enabling this behavior to happen. And the partners just really are judged on how many clients and contracts they bring in. So I'm wondering
Right.
if, you know, and I know malpractice cases can be hard, and like lawyers are hesitant to criticize other lawyers and take on cases about other lawyers. At least I found in my work, because I've worked with a lot of people who've experienced just like gross malpractice. So I'm wondering if you ever explored that avenue or what your thoughts are on that, holding them to account.
Yeah, it's a great question. And yes, I mean, I think in the abstract, many people who are involved in this have valid claims against Gibson Dunn. That's my belief, in my opinion. Um, One of the issues with suing law firms, which you brought up, is that, a lot of lawyers are hesitant to go after other lawyers. We need to stop having this like gentlemanly agreement that it's okay to destroy people, because it's not. Um, but I think one of the other big things is it's money, right? A lot of law firms will take cases on contingency, and there are law firms that go after legal misconduct. Like that's their specialty. It's war, and they sign up for war. That said, and they'll take it on contingency, but there are still hard costs that are hundreds of thousands of dollars. So for regular folks who like don't, and my husband and I have gotten back on our feet and we have earned a lot of money, but like we've spent nearly $4 million on lawyers over the past 5 years. And my husband and I are both entrepreneurs and like we'll hustle as hard as we can, but it has been
I just
devastating.
got the chills hearing that, because it's like, it, who can, I mean, you can barely do that and you're highly accomplished people. So what hope is there for literally anyone else?
There is not hope. And
Yeah.
that is the cold hard truth that in America you get the justice you can buy. Like it's just like I'm at this point where like we need to start saying we need to start accepting the very uncomfortable truths about America. And we're
Yeah.
doing it in a lot of ways, but like we're not doing it with our institutions. I mean, I'm just kind of like watching what is happening in the Southern District of New York with Mayor Adams, where the Trump administration directed the Southern District of New York to drop the charges, and like the acting U.S. attorney resigned, and everyone's like, she's a hero. There are no heroes, right? Like, to be fair, Danielle Sassoon, the acting attorney general, like, she signed up to take direction from the Department of Justice, and the direction of this administration was to drop the charges. And she's like, but we could prove them. You could prove lots of charges against lots of people that you don't bring. The truth is that every single prosecution decision by the Department of Justice is selective, right? Like they choose to charge some people, they choose not to charge others. And like you could be Bob who stole $10,000 from your company in Orlando, and that prosecutor will charge you. And you could be Sally and who did the exact same thing in California, and that prosecutor won't charge you because of relationships, because of priorities in your office, because you want a certain job. Like it's all
Public,
selective,
public pressure.
right?
Yeah.
It's all selective. And so to
Yeah.
get on this high horse and say, "Oh, but I won't do this because I could convict," like that's not a heroic thing to do. And I also think that like, I'm sorry, I want to say like, call me Danielle when you stand up for the families that have been destroyed by your office as misconduct, because there have been, right? It's like my family was financially destroyed by the DOJ's misconduct, and in many ways emotionally destroyed.
I
Like our
wanted to
entire
bring that up too, because you know this so well, the concept of legal trauma and what that means at a very human level. Because I sometimes try to describe to people in my life who have never been through it or not, just like completely unfamiliar, and it's unfathomable to them. They don't, and it's when you think about the weight people lose, the very physical ramifications. And I think you've spoken about this a little bit as it relates to your own physical health, but like the
Yeah.
fact that quite literally legal trauma can kill people.
Yeah.
And even you see with the last person I interviewed for my little YouTube was Brian Knowles, who represented the two Boeing whistleblowers who died.